your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thanks for joining us for our Week in Review. For many small businesses across the country, this past Thursday was D-Day, the deadline to pay back the $60,000 Canadian Emergency Business Account Loan, also known as the pandemic loan. But there was a silver lining in all of it. If a business owner was able to pay back at least $40,000 of it by the deadline, the remaining $20,000 was forgiven. However, in this next report, you'll see there are some who feel that the business owners who really needed that grant are the ones who won't be able to benefit from it. Take a look.
People like myself, we shut down 8 times in 18 months.
Vicki Vandenhoek is one of 900,000 business owners across the country who took out the Canadian Emergency Business Account Loan to help her restaurant, Honker's Pub and Eatery, during the pandemic.
We all really needed the $60,000 would have been terrific because we never have recovered all of that yet.
The Lethbridge entrepreneur says she paid back the $40,000 portion of her $60,000 CEBA loan this past Monday, meaning she'll be one of the lucky ones who gets to keep the $20,000 forgivable portion.
And, very grateful for any of the forgiveness that we got from, the different organization of the government.
There are about 22% that won't even receive the forgivable portion, unfortunately.
Those loans were meant to help businesses that were in trouble due to the pandemic.
Hunter Hagee is with the Lethbridge Downtown BRZ and says, although the grant portion is appreciated, there's a flaw with the system.
The problem is in paying it back, the people who needed it the least, who were able to pay it back, are benefited by getting the grant portion of it.
And it's got business groups worried that thousands of struggling entrepreneurs could be forced to close their doors.
The loans were there to support small businesses in their time of need, and these might be the loans that shut them down, which is very unfortunate.
For Bridge City News, I'm Jeanette Roche. Police are warning about a phone scam after a 79-year-old woman was defrauded out of $20,000. Lethbridge police say on January 9th, the victim encountered some ransomware that locked up her computer. A pop-up on her screen instructed her to call a number from Microsoft, which she did, but it was actually a fraudster who told her to call the number on the back of her bank card. She hung up her landline from them, but didn't hang up long enough, so the call never actually disconnected. Therefore, when she thought she was calling her bank, the scammer was still on the line. The person pretended to be an individual from her bank and convinced her to withdraw the money and put it into a Bitcoin machine. Constable Stephanie Law of Lethbridge Police Service says scammers are getting very sophisticated and are usually several steps ahead of us.
And they can do like a ringtone to make it sound like, oh yeah, I've got a dial tone. Always best practice. Anytime this, you get a phone call or you're directed to call somebody, hang up for at least a minute so it can disconnect. And if possible, use a different phone to call that number on the back of your card or to call the known number, just so that there is no chance of that call not being disconnected. So just close the pop-up. Microsoft isn't monitoring everybody's computer all the time, so they don't know when your computer's having a problem. If you think your computer is having a problem, don't call any numbers on pop-ups. Take it to a local place where you can hand it to them, and don't deal with anybody over the phone.
Good advice. Police say if you fall victim to a Bitcoin cryptocurrency scam, please try to retain the wallet address and transaction hash or ID of where you sent the crypto. This will help in tracing your money. A 28-year-old Southern Alberta man is facing a charge in connection with alleged animal abuse. BCN's Naveen Day has more of the details and joins me now, but I will caution viewer discretion is advised, as what you are about to hear may be quite unsettling. Naveen?
Yes, Jeanette, that is correct. The details of the story are graphic in nature, and they may be disturbing to some of our viewers. Nicholas Wimster of Picture Butte faces one count of injuring or endangering animals. An animal rescue organization took to social media over this past weekend, alleging that Wimster tortured and abused several cats, including stomping a kitten to death, another kitten that was dead having its limbs stretched and pulled apart, and 4 5-month-old kittens that were individually microwaved to death. The RCMP will not comment further on the matter. We also reached out to the Last Chance Cat Ranch, who has since rescued the mother of the 4 babies that were allegedly microwaved, but we have yet to hear back. Jeanette.
Oh, thanks so much, Naveen, for that. Very disturbing details indeed. Well, coming up, Alberta's opposition party has plans to vote for a new leader. We tell you why after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The leader of the Alberta New Democrats is resigning. Rachel Notley made the announcement on Tuesday afternoon in Edmonton. The former Alberta premier was at the helm of the party for almost a decade. Notley says she will remain on as leader while the party holds a leadership race to replace her, but that she will not lead the Alberta NDP into the next provincial election. She says it was an honor being leader of the party and was surprised when her party first formed government back in 2015.
This October will be 10 years since I was first given the honor of leading our party. At the time, we were the 4th party in the legislature with a massive caucus consisting of 4 MLAs. Less than 7 months later, we had a caucus of 54 MLAs and Alberta's first NDP government. While many of those folks, and indeed myself included, never expected to be elected, let alone finding themselves in a government cabinet, we all scrambled quickly to live up to the immense privilege and responsibility the people of Alberta bestowed upon us.
The announcement ends months of speculation about how long Notley would remain at the helm following 2 failed elections. As for continuing on as an MLA, she has not ruled that out, saying she may run again in Edmonton Strathcona. The next Alberta election is slated for 2027. We'll have further discussion about Notley's departure and who might replace her coming up later in our show. Well, the nasty cold temperatures we received last weekend caused major issues with our electricity grid to the point where the Alberta Electricity System Operator issued emergency alerts on Saturday, warning that rotating outages would occur if folks didn't reduce consumption. Albertans were asked to turn off unnecessary lights, to not use their stoves, unplug their electric vehicles, and not plug in their block heaters. Spokesperson Leaf Solid says consumption dropped by 100 megawatts within seconds of people receiving the alerts on their phones, and demand declined another 100 megawatts within a few more minutes. We ended up avoiding rolling blackouts thanks to Saskatchewan helping us out. Alberta's Utilities Minister Nathan Newdorf joined Hal Roberts from Edmonton to talk about what transpired last Saturday.
Now, Nathan, Albertans were asked to turn off the lights and unplug, yet we saw many images on social media of skyscrapers in both Calgary and Edmonton all lit up on a Saturday night.
That's something that we continue to work on. We did put out our request broadly to everyone, and we are working with businesses and commercial entities. Obviously, there could be multiple ownership, there could be emergency lighting, different things like that that are wired into those buildings. It's identified as an area needing improvement, and we've reached out to as many as we can to ask for their additional cooperation should we ever face that same situation again.
So can you really explain how it came to be that Saskatchewan came to our rescue?
Well, Saskatchewan has a little bit additional resources at their disposal in terms of coal-fired and natural gas-fired generation. And they were able to maximize what they could send us for that time frame, and we're very, very grateful to them. Unfortunately, our system right now only has a very small intertie with Saskatchewan, and 153 megawatts is the full and maximum value that we can put through that line. This is something that we're identifying through our internal inquiries, and we look forward to rectifying that in the future.
You know, many people would argue this is a prime example of why we should not put all of our eggs in the renewable energy basket, relying solely on wind power and solar power, and that natural gas and coal-generated electricity is still needed. Now, that's a point that Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe recently brought up.
Absolutely. Renewables have an incredible piece to play. They are zero emitting and low cost, so they have great attributes. Unfortunately, there are times in the year where there are other negative attributes that they are not dispatchable. We can't make the wind blow in winter when the sun sets early before peak times. we can't rely on them at those times. So we need to maximize their good benefits, and we need to find a mitigation strategy to compensate when they aren't able to produce for the grid.
That was Alberta Affordability and Utilities Minister Nathan Neudorf joining Hell from Edmonton. And by the way, Alberta's opposition NDP says Minister Neudorf needs to take action on increasing grid reliability following those 4 grid alerts last weekend. Coming up next, as the cold winter months have arrived, so too have more of the federal carbon tax bills. We'll be right back.
On average, I did the calculation, that will then cost the average Alberta family over $400 per winter just on home heating for natural gas. And for folks who are in rural areas, who live in RVs or trailer parks and use propane, the cost on the carbon tax is about the same. You get no breaks.
According to the Canadian Taxpayer Federation, Alberta homeowners will pay a lot more in carbon tax to heat their homes now that the federal carbon tax has been reinstated, and right in time for the cold winter months. Right now, many families are just hoping the power stays on following our recent grid emergency. To talk about how much the carbon tax is costing us right now is the Alberta Director of the CTF, Chris Sims, who once again joined Hal Roberts.
Chris, what is the cost for the average Albertan right now who uses natural gas to heat their home?
Most of us do use natural gas to heat our homes, and it's going to cost the average Alberta family around $300 extra just in their home winter heating, and that's just in the carbon tax.
Now, the federal carbon tax is expected to go up again in April, but by how much?
Yeah, so it's going to be going up to $80 per ton. What that means in normal people speak is that it's going up around 3 cents per cubic meter. On average, I did the calculation, that will then cost the average Alberta family over $400 per winter just on home heating for natural gas. And for folks who are in rural areas, who live in RVs or trailer parks and use propane, the cost on the carbon tax is about the same. You get no breaks.
Now, I know you and your group have been putting pressure on the Trudeau Liberals to offer a carve-out to those who use natural gas to heat their homes. Have you had much success?
No, and what's disappointing is that we know that Prime Minister Trudeau will listen to some of his Liberal members of Parliament, because the Atlantic Caucus of the Liberal Party successfully got a carve-out for their constituents. So only around 3 or 4% of Canadians still use furnace oil. Almost all of those homes happen to be located in Atlantic Canada.
Thanks so much for your time today, Chris. That was Chris Sims, Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Lethbridge.
Alberta's Public Safety Minister Mike Ellis addressed the tent encampments in our province and talked about targeted supports for those who are battling homelessness. Ellis was joined by Social Services Minister Jason Nixon in Edmonton this past week, saying more help for our most vulnerable is on the way. Ellis says crime must also be addressed at these various encampments, especially in Edmonton.
We know that organized crime and gang members such as Red Alert are infiltrating encampments. They are violently enforcing tent taxes, forcing vulnerable people to pay for access to water, the ability to even pitch a tent, or to access bridges and walkways. But we must confront these challenges and do what we can to bring vulnerable Albertans to safety. Albertans are suffering in the violent, predatory conditions of these encampments. Alberta's government will do whatever it takes to eliminate the violent gang and criminal activity that targets our most vulnerable. And we will fight to keep Edmontonians and, quite frankly, all Albertans safe.
Social Services Minister Jason Nixon says his government will be opening a new support and navigation center at the Cara Center in Edmonton to support the city's most vulnerable.
I want to be very clear that the Support Navigation Center is not designed to replace the considerable support and emergency shelter system that is already in place in Edmonton, but to bring all that support system together to provide wraparound services to individuals coming out of encampments.
Government officials say when spring rolls around, the Navigation Center will then be transformed into a 100-bed woman-only shelter. The Alberta government is investing $3.5 million to help make the province more drought resilient, improve water quality, and prevent flooding. Officials say the funds will support 8 projects in the communities across the province through the Watershed Resiliency and Restoration Program. They say these projects will restore riverbanks and watersheds. They will also help to stabilize stream banks and improve natural drainage, supporting communities impacted by recent droughts or floods. Since 2014, officials say this type of funding has supported the restoration and conservation of almost 5,500 hectares of wetlands and 320 kilometers of stream banks. The Alberta government provided an update on the orphan well cleanup. According to Alberta Energy Regulator, the number of inactive wells dropped from 91,000 to 83,000. The AER also released a report which says in 2022, oil and gas companies spent around $700 million to clean up liabilities. In total, more than $1.2 billion was spent on cleanup and closure work for that year. 2 years ago, the energy regulator required industry to spend at least $422 million collectively on closure and cleanup work. After the break, what might the province's opposition party look like once Rachel Notley makes her departure? We dive into that next. Welcome back. Our legislative reporter and the Alberta correspondent with the National Post, Tyler Dawson, discusses what the Alberta NDP might look like once Rachel Notley leaves her leadership role behind. He says she has become quite the fixture in Alberta politics, having won 1 election and taking the party from only 4 seats when she entered to its current 38. Take a look.
At the time that she became the leader of the New Democrats in 2014, the debate was, how conservative do you want your government to be? It's, do you want the Progressive Conservatives or the Wild Rose? The Liberals were still around, the Alberta Party was still around, but the NDP at that time had only 4 seats in the legislature. Now it's 38. So, we're talking a very significant expansion of the power that party has in the province in the past decade under Notley's leadership. When she resigned yesterday, she had this quip right off the top. She said, if I looked at the United States with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, I'd maybe have 20 more years left in my political career. But she sort of decided that for the good of the party, it's maybe time for her to step down, for other people to take over the helm, to sort of take the party in whatever direction they might want. And it was a funny press conference. It was an emotional press conference. She got quite choked up talking about her father and her mother, both of whom are dead now, and how they'd sort of influenced her perspective on public service and politics over her life. So it's funny. It feels like it'll be a very different world when she's gone. She's been such a fixture for so long. The other part is she's outlasted how many Progressive Conservative and UCP leaders? She's been a real fixture for a long time.
But Tyler, do you think the fact that she lost the last 2 elections was a large determining factor in her making the decision to step down as party leader?
Well, I think that it suggests that maybe she's hit a bit of a ceiling on what she can achieve or what she feels she can achieve. And she is also saddled with her 4 years in government. Those were not good years for Alberta. I think people certainly differ in their views on to what extent that's her fault versus just the way the world works. But she does have that sort of record, that legacy. She can be attacked on the carbon tax. She can be attacked on the farm bill. She does have some of those sort of weights around her, and a new leader might not have that. It is unusual that she stuck around after 2 election losses. Most leaders are sort of out the door after that. You look at the federal Conservatives who churned through 2 leaders before they got to Poilievre in the past few years here. So, it is unusual that she stuck around more than anything, I think. And whether her leaving will put the NDP in a better electoral position, that is very much hard to say, I think.
We've heard names like David Shepherd, Kathleen Ganley, Sarah Hoffman, even Shanna Phillips here in Lethbridge as potential successors. What are you hearing?
Well, it's really just sort of rumor and chatter at this point. The questions that I've got from people are sort of, who do you think's going to run? Who do you think's going to be, a good bet for leader? Because Notley leaves behind very, very large shoes to fill. The thing that I should have said right off the top that I didn't is that she essentially united the left in Alberta in the way that Jason Kenney united the right in Alberta. She just did it without, sort of the blue truck and the controversy. The Alberta Party and the Alberta Liberals are basically no more. Their voters have been folded into the NDP. So whoever comes along is going to be in a position where not only are they taking over a party that's riding a little bit high, but they also have this sort of center to left coalition. It's not all just sort of left-wing university activists from downtown Edmonton. You also have people who are traditionally more centrist with the Alberta Party who are under that tent. So it's going to be a challenge for whoever takes over. And of the people that you mentioned, the only person who seems to have really obviously telegraphed that they're going to be doing it as Kathleen Ganley. She had a video that she posted to X, formerly Twitter, last week that was sort of like, I'm Kathleen Ganley, this is what I stand for, this is who I am, so on and so forth. It's a bit of an open question right now. There's lots of other questions about, when's the race going to happen? What's it going to look like? What are the rules? All that kind of stuff. Because it's actually, it's been more than 10 years since the NDP has done one. So there's some logistics to sort out in addition to what sort of the cast of characters is going to look like.
So how much different do you think this party will actually look like not having Rachel Notley at the helm?
Under her, the party has stayed reasonably centrist, I think, in many ways. And so there is the possibility that whoever comes in next is going to bring in a different set of priorities and a different sort of panache to the job. And that could be a good thing for building the party's strengths in parts of the province. But it also, I think, maybe runs a little bit of a risk of alienating some of the more centrist voters, maybe some of the skeptical UCP voters that voted New Democrat in the last election.
Still to come as we wind down Human Trafficking Prevention Month, it doesn't mean the issue is going away. Next, we speak with a young lady who is making a difference in her community and beyond. But first, a quick break. Welcome back. January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and issues like homelessness and human trafficking have never been more evident than they are today. Jen Tribble runs My City Care and the Not For Sale Ministries in Alberta and joined me to discuss the issue. Jen, your mission in life seems to be dedicated to helping people. So another aspect of My City Care is finding solutions for human trafficking. So that ministry is called Not For Sale, right?
Yes. So we have a ministry that we partner with called Not For Sale. It also has been an organization that's birthed out of our church, and it's been around for even longer than My City Care. But yeah, its mission is to help eradicate human trafficking, which is a huge need.
What is the biggest misconception about human trafficking today?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions we see is that a lot of people think that it is just overseas and that it doesn't happen in your own backyard, when we see the effects of that even daily in our office here in Lethbridge. And so we see a lot of people that are coming in that are accessing services that also might be in situations that are difficult for them to bring forward or discuss. And so part of our job is to build relationships with them through our office and just make it a safe place where they can connect with people.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it happens like right here in these smaller communities. Can you maybe share any personal stories that have come out of working to free these children and these women?
I would say, when it comes to in Canada and stuff, a lot of the situations are very interwoven. So they're very complex situations. They're not like they're going to come in and express that they're in a situation like that. A lot of the times the people that come through the doors are dealing with multiple things such as poverty and addictions and homelessness. And so they're very vulnerable in those situations. And sometimes because of the nature of it and the manipulation and deception that goes into that, they don't necessarily recognize that could be a situation that they're in. So a lot of the times we really work on that relationship piece and building trust and a safe place where they can connect with different members of our team. And then if they do come forward, then we can help them report it or get them connected through the different agencies and channels that would be the best route for them. But because it's so unique in every situation, that pathway looks different. And so like we might connect them right away into a rehab, or we might connect them into a place where they can have safe shelter and a thing. So it's very different and unique to the individual and what they're going through and their needs that are unique to them.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine it's not easy for somebody to come forward. They're probably terrified, for one thing. Does this usually happen with the person coming to you, or is it usually done through somebody else, that somebody is aware that something is going on and you guys go in and intervene? Or do you get law enforcement involved if that's the case?
It would most likely be law enforcement in those types of situations. Like we in our office are more on the bridge building and relationship building side. And then so we would hand them over to, like I said, the appropriate resources that can help and take the next steps, whether they want to press charges or they want to just be in a safe situation.
Jen, how can the average person help to put an end to something like this, to human trafficking?
Yeah, I think there's lots of very like practical ways that you can help. Like one of the biggest things that we can do is educate the public about it and let people know that this isn't just something that happens overseas, like it happens in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our backyards. So one of the things that you can do is spread awareness of what to look for and the signs of human trafficking. And it's not to cause fear, it's just to bring awareness to it and the fact that there might be people that are going through this and they don't recognize it as human trafficking. Like I was saying, because of the deception and the manipulation around it, sometimes it's difficult to recognize.
You mentioned looking for the signs. What are these signs that we're supposed to be looking for?
Yeah, so I think some of the things that they usually that are kind of the telltale signs are if people are isolating from their friends and family. That's a big one. So if you're seeing changes in how they approach life, they're isolating. Sometimes they might be carrying multiple phones. That's a big one. Being, I would say, like, yeah, being away and not knowing where they are, or maybe they will know where they are, but if you ask them, sometimes their stories don't add up. Any bruising or tattoos sometimes can be an indicator, but like a big one, I think big one to watch for is isolation, multiple cell phones. As a parent, I think you know when something's off with your children, and keeping an eye on those social media platforms and different things and how they're communicating with their friends and family. And yeah, isolation is a really big one.
When we return from the financial struggles of the agri-food and trade hub to dealing with inflationary pressures and challenging interest rates, our one-on-one conversation with Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin is next.